but you want to kind of get out some of that physical energy in whatever way you can within the, confines. So actually, this was happening a lot. If you Google a lot of these exercises at home kinds of things, even if you don't have like traditional weights or things like that, there's a lot of information out there, especially since COVID. I've seen about how to use kind of regular indoor kind of apartment or house objects and furniture to kind of use as an exercise base for various kinds of things. So I think basically you want to have, again, an open kind of growth mindset where you're looking more to what you can do as opposed to kind of a more fixed mindset, and being bummed out that you're not able to do exactly what you want to do.
As a tangential anecdote to what you were just saying, I happened to have read an article yesterday. They were talking about some recent studies where people were doing weight-based exercises, right, with weight machines and free weights, compared to people that just did body weight exercises. And they said there was absolutely no differentiation in the gain of muscle mass or overall strength between those that used weights and those that just generally did body weight type exercises. So to the point that Dr. Katz is making, you don't need any equipment, right? You don't need a lot of specialized equipment. Sometimes we like to think you need a whole gym and lots of stuff. You can be creative and do all sorts of things out there, and you don't even need any equipment at all in many cases.
And Peter, one last thing on that is you also have to recognize that even though you might be getting as good a workout, like Peter said, even though you may not feel that way, it may feel just less enjoyable, because if you're somebody who likes to get outside like myself, like I hate running on a treadmill. I mean, historically I've done that some, but I would much prefer to go out in 17 degrees and, windy conditions than be on a treadmill. So you just have to recognize that sometimes you have to do stuff to get your kind of workout and your exercise in that is less than optimal, and just kind of take it for what it is, because getting a workout in of any kind is better than not getting one in. So, that kind of flexibility again during these times is important.
Yeah, the only time I ever liked being on a treadmill was when I was in Kuwait and it was 117 degrees.
Yeah,
I couldn't run outside in that.
That's fair. I made the mistake. I went for a run in Vegas, and I said, "Oh well, I was in Las Vegas. I was only there for a couple of days. I'm going to go run, and I'm going to do one block." I just said, "I'm just going to do one block." Just my hotel was on the Strip. Do you know how big a block is in Vegas?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was like the dumbest thing I ever did. They're literally 1 kilometer square, so it's 0.6 of a mile per side. I thought I was going to go for a really short run, and it was like 3 miles just to get around the square. And like you said, it was 110 degrees or something. I'm like, okay, this was not a good idea.
The opposite story that I have is early on, many years ago in my marathon career, my second or third marathon I ever ran, it was 2 degrees without the wind chill. And I remember at the start of the race, I started running and my nostrils froze.
Yes.
And I panicked because it had never happened before. And now you're thinking, okay, I have another 3 hours ahead of me of frozen nostrils, or is this going to lead to some frostbite? I mean, soon after, of course, your nostrils defrost, so to speak. And I was fine. And then all I had to do was contend with 2-degree weather, which was not joyful, but your body warms up pretty quickly. But waiting to start that race was one of the least enjoyable moments in my running career.
There you go. It's certainly true. I could imagine that. All right, guys, don't forget, get your questions in. I know you've got them because we talk about them all the time, and I know that you've got questions here. Let me ask a general one, Dr. Katz. We've had a couple of members that have been working on managing discipline, and specifically when they've been having good days, or they'll have good, partial days. So it's the same problem that so many of us have had, where they're up on the day, they're doing well, and then they have this series of bad losses, and they just start giving it back and giving it back. And rather than stopping at their predetermined spot, you sort of get in your head, I was up, whatever, I was at $500, now I'm down at $200. I can do it. I can get it back. And before they know it, they've lost the last 200 and they're back at ground zero, and they're like, what the heck just happened? Any advice to how, when you're in that moment and you're talking, your head is telling you you can do this, you can go get it back. How to
Well, a big thing is really the mental and psychological preparation prior to the trading day. One of the things that is really important in terms of any of us changing kind of our behavior is really an awareness of what the triggers are for our behaving in a way that's counterproductive. So if there's a pattern where you're in that situation where you kind of let go of your discipline, you loosen your process, and everything goes out the window. That's something that, during your quiet moments at night and your pre-trading day mental routine prior to the market's opening, you really need to remind yourself that be aware of what the triggers are, that in these kinds of situations, you are prone and vulnerable and a little bit fragile emotionally and be susceptible to that kind of counterproductive behavior. And I think first the step is to be mindful of it. I think the most immediate thing you could do is that awareness can be helpful, that when it happens is just to step away from the computer. It's a little bit of a Band-Aid approach, but in the beginning, it keeps you from making bad decisions. If you're able to step away, kind of reset your emotions, get kind of back on even plane and rethink what you're going through and tighten up your discipline and your process, then you come back. But at first, you want to do no harm. So if in the meantime things start to go south and you're really feeling overwhelmed, it's really important to back off. But I think the first step is the level of awareness and know where your triggers are so that you could kind of anticipate your areas of vulnerability and susceptibility.
Yes, I know that sometimes I don't prep in the morning the way I should, and that would, your advice is good.
And Peter, let me just say, sometimes people don't prep because you may think it's unconscious. I'm not saying about you, of course, but people don't prep because they don't want to be accountable to themselves. And this is part of just people saying, the hell with it, I'm just going to kind of do what I want to do. And again, this is often unconscious, but people don't want to be accountable themselves. And if you prepare and you have rules for yourself, it makes it harder to break them. It doesn't mean you can't. But a lot of times people don't set out those goals or that discipline process because they don't want to take responsibility and accountability for themselves. And that is going to be problematic with kind of trading over the long haul.
It's a good point. Actually, that's food for thought.
Well, Mike, when we've talked about kind of journaling and writing down your trades and seeing patterns, very often for any of us, this is in trading or just in life in general, if you were to track what you do and your actions, there's often a pattern of kind of our behavior. There's patterns also, things that trigger kind of more positive, successful behavior. And there are things that, if you look at things that tend to tick us off or get us upset or aggravated, whether with it's ourselves or somebody around us, there's usually patterns. So if people could make note for themselves of that, this is where journaling is particularly helpful in trading, and you review those things, you're going to be able to identify here, when these types of things happen, I tend to behave like this. And so that's the first step. To try to guess about it, it's really, that's a little more difficult. But, also this is where people becoming more self-aware. There are people's relationship with money, what that's like, people who are prone more to anxiety or a lack of self-confidence, kinds of things, knowing kind of how your personality is, how you're wired, will help you with certain things that will trigger some of those kind of areas of vulnerability. Well, you turn over trading from an advantage to a disadvantage by being able to look when you track your trades, probably if you're over trading, you probably could identify, let's say there's 10 trades and you see 7 which were not very good and 3 that were good. And so if you probably track them, there probably could be a pattern of where you're hitting your sweet spot, and then maybe trying to focus on trading in those areas that you are more prone for success. But the big thing on overtrading is usually, again, triggered by some emotional response, whether it's anxiety or FOMO, or sometimes greed, and sometimes boredom. So again, this gets back to what we were just talking about before regarding triggers. You've got to see, like, if you were to go back and journal and look at when you tend to overtrade. Some people overtrade when they're like doing well and now they're getting excited and they think every trade they throw against the wall is going to stick. Other people overtrade because they start getting bored when there's not many market opportunities for them, and they just say the heck with it, and then they start trading because they're jonesing to trade and they just want to put something on the board. So I think, again, overtrading is usually, triggered by often emotional states. And so the more you can identify where you fall along that, that level of awareness is going to be the first step to making corrective action.
I want to go back to a question that was asked earlier that we didn't get to. It was a specific question about going from sim to live. And the question was just how do I, we all know it's an emotionally fraught process, to go, the tools are the same, the emotions are not. How can somebody prepare themselves to go from the simulation environment to live trading?
So I think one of the key things is, very often we all think about things in kind of a very binary way. And often performance is related. If I feel good, I'm going to perform well. And if I feel poorly, I'm going to perform poorly. And for many people, those things kind of hold true. I guess what I'm saying is the switch from sim to live, you can be scared, kind of a healthy, normal anxiety that you have about putting real money in play, and still trade well. Again, we have talked in the past about, making that transition by putting little money at play so that the emotional volatility associated with the dollar volatility will be minimized. So you could really focus on trying to make good trading decisions and you don't feel the emotional ups and downs, as opposed to losing a lot or a little, money. But I think, again, part of this is working, is being prepared for the anticipatory emotions that happen. It's okay to feel uncomfortable and anxious when you go there. Don't view that should not be distracting. It's just pretty normal. It just means that you have to work a little harder on concentrating and being disciplined in your process and your strategy. It just means you have to block out some of those concerns and those fears. But again, starting small is the best thing. And what you're really looking for is very small, gradual, incremental bits of self-confidence to build on doing the right thing. And again, as we've talked about before, that's not necessarily making money, although that's the ultimate. But if you followed your trading plan, and your process, and you have a losing trade, you've got to at least kind of, again, it's like the baseball player swinging at a good pitch, making good contact, hitting a line drive. The outfielder catches it. The player's not happy they didn't get a hit, but they're trying to build their confidence by the fact that they've worked their process, swung at a good pitch, hit the ball, and then hopefully over time they'll get some hits. So again, look for small incremental gains in terms of building your self-confidence.
Love it. Let's go back here. Joe, go ahead, Mike.
I think the way you improve self-discipline is you try to set some very reasonable goals that are achievable, and set out a reasonable plan to try to execute them. If somebody wants to exercise who's been sedentary, you don't say, I'm going to start running 5 miles every day, because if you start on a Monday, you're likely to be on the disabled list on Wednesday with an injury. But it may be more reasonable just to do something manageable, which might be, hey, maybe I should go out every other day for a 30-minute walk. Like, that's very achievable. It just means putting the time aside. So you want to set goals that are reasonable and achievable. And then you want, the key thing with discipline is that you want to have it be self-reinforcing. The more you can follow through on what you set out, even if it's a smaller goal initially than what you finally want to achieve, that's fine, because you want to kind of increase your confidence. And then slowly you want to kind of maybe build those goals to a little greater, or in terms of intensity or frequency. And then also what you want to do is you want to make sure in doing this, you want to put aside some of the distractions. You want to be reasonable. A lot of people, when they have goals, they become a little too perfectionistic. And this is what happens with dieting with people. They want to have a diet and it's a little unreasonable. And as soon as they say, the hell with it, I'm going to have an ice cream cone tonight, then they just abandon the whole ship, as opposed to being able to be a little more tolerable of themselves. And we all are not perfect. And so if there's a little bit of a setback, this shouldn't mean you abandon your goals and your discipline. It just means that you want to make whatever adjustments are necessary and forge ahead. So starting small, achievable goals, trying to let go of perfectionistic styles, and slowly build from there.
If I could just jump in quickly, unrelated message, guys. We work hard to maintain a apolitical environment here. I understand that the president is talking right now where it directly relates to trading. That commentary is fair game. Even indirect comments, though, that are of a political nature can be inflammatory to some people. So just ask that you stay away from it. Let's talk about the markets. That's what we're here to do. We're here to trade, and avoid the rest of the commentary, okay? Thanks a lot. We had another question. Well, there's a bunch of stuff that's coming in, some interesting statements and commentary. Let's go back to the one I was going to ask about from Joe. It's sort of related to what we were talking about. But he says how he's been trading after live. He went back to sim, and now he's very sheepish taking live trades, even small sizes. Feels that he's sort of chickening out. You know, sort of struggling, I guess, with getting over that hump to get that confidence back into the live market. I can only presume from his question he had some losses live, which is why I went back to sim, but I'm guessing on that. Any recommendation on how to regain that?
Listen,
psych yourself up to regain the confidence.
Yeah, I think the key is to be looking at what you want to achieve and don't get so caught up. Lack of confidence when things are not going well is a kind of a common and almost necessary kind of situation in order to kind of help people recognize what some of the issues are. I would try to just focus on what you want to achieve. The key thing in building self-confidence when things are not going well is look for very small wins. So again, like I said, if you have a plan, preparation is the key. You need to prepare for what you're doing on the trading day. These are things totally in your control. So if you could prepare well, do your kind of market analysis, your pre-trading day mental routine, all of the things that you do, you can at least take pride and comfort in that you're preparing well. That you have total control over, and that could slowly, incrementally build confidence. Then when the trading day happens, it really means just trying to follow through on your plan, even if you're putting very little money at risk or you're trading in sim. Again, try to build and recognize and acknowledge even the very small incremental gains that you're making. This is like, the person who gets the 54 on the calculus test feels lousy. Now, the next time they may get a 62, it may still be failing, but they've now made a slow incremental gain. It's not where they want to be, but they're getting better. And so it's important not to look at like, I'm going to be a terrible math student forever. It might be more important, okay, I studied more, I made a little bit of a 10-point or so jump. I would like to get into the 80s and just continue along the pathway of trying to get better. Now, that's hard when things are not going well because our mind goes to the outcome when the work is on the process. And this gets into be the nature of trading all the time, is that people focus on the outcome, and that's the great, that's the kiss of death in terms of really getting better, because the process is really how any of us gets better in anything.
Yeah, well said. It is hard not focusing on the outcome, isn't it? It's funny. I use sports analogies all the time, but you're right. Like, you know, it's like you can't, while playing a game, you can't focus on winning the game. It's almost a sure way of losing the game. You've got to focus on the pass ahead of you, or the, you know, the teamwork, or, you know, it's the shot that you've got to pay attention to, which is in essence the process. In trading, it's the same thing, right? Focus on your technical entries, on your strategies. You know, are you implementing a strategy that's in your playbook? Are you following, like Dr. Katz said, the rules you set out for yourself at the beginning of the day? If not, you need to be able to put that interrupt in and check yourself and step back and say, all right, a second, I got to move back to my base principles. And that's really hard to do. And I like it the way you said it, Dr. Katz. That's really hard to do, especially when you're sitting, you know, let's say you're in the red on the day. You're like, yeah, but I got to make back that money. Right?
Well, you know, Peter, it's very interesting because I work with athletes all the time. And one of the things that I say to them, a tennis player who's getting their butt kicked in a match, or a basketball team is down by 27 points with 7 minutes to go. Yeah, we all recognize it's not really stated at that point that the likelihood of victory is very slim to none. But you have an opportunity to get better in those moments, in that last 7 minutes of that basketball game. You have an opportunity to get better in those last few games of that tennis match. You may not win the match, but from a psychological and even a physical point of view, every time you're on the court, you have an opportunity to get better. And so even in a trading day where things are not going well, this is where the real mental fortitude, the resilience, the grit, all those kinds of things become important, because, you know, the best traders, you know, they may get down big early and they end the day down, but they fought their way back and they grinded back some of those losses. And it, you know, there's a tremendous amount of pride and comfort and confidence that can come with that, even though when they look at it as, I still lost X dollars today. And that, the ability to be able to kind of embrace the challenge and get something out of that game, even though you may lose, is really helpful in building good discipline and mental strength and mental endurance. So again, for trading perspective, yes, it is hard in the midst of like a tough trading day, but this is having to kind of fight through that in a positive, constructive way serves people really well down the road. Yeah. Easier said than done.
So it always is. Yeah. Well, and you know, it's funny because you made me think in the way you were saying that about momentum, and you mentioned tennis. So I've been watching some of the U.S. Open with it being on right now, and we did have a bunch of Canadians in it, but now we don't. But anyways, that aside, it always amazes me. I'm not a huge tennis watcher, but when I do watch it, it always amazes me how momentum plays such a big part of the game. Right? You'll get somebody who's playing very well, and then they get a couple of bad shots, and the momentum seems to swing them down, and they lose a whole bunch of points in a row. Till they do something, like they do something to interrupt that process. They come back with sort of either renewed energy, renewed mental focus, you know, a little more pace on their game, whatever, and then they can often turn that around. But it's hard, and you say they may not, you know, maybe too late to win the game, but sometimes they can turn around and sort of put a good showing into the end.
Yeah, and when you talk about momentum there, really what you're talking about is confidence, self-confidence.
Correct.
And the advantage of self-confidence is this. When you have confidence, you're actually free. I mean, there's the danger sometimes of becoming overconfident, but let's put that aside for now. You're free of distractions. You're free of self-doubt, all the kind of things. When things are not going well, actually you have to work harder to keep those distracting thoughts at a distance. It takes more work to lock in. So if you and I are playing a tennis match and I'm down, all I have to do is play a good next point. But if I'm getting killed, it's harder for me to keep out those thoughts about that I'm losing and not playing well out. Whereas if you're playing really well, you're just kind of in the flow, in the zone, and you're just doing your thing. And so we both have to do the same thing at that moment. But that's what, when you talk about momentum, and even in traders, right? When you have a good momentum, it really means confidence and comfort. It allows you to think more clearly and not have anxiety and tension and not be distracted.
Agreed. Yes. Well, good. Well said. Yeah. Indeed. All right. Did I miss Mike? Did I miss any questions here? Okay. We're caught up.
We've solved the world's trading problems in a half an hour.
It's all good.
Okay, everybody all good? We're good?
Fantastic. No issues.
No issues, man. That's why, like, we wrap it up with a bow at the end of the Thursday meeting.
Flawless trading from here on in.
Yeah.
Closes.
You're quite welcome. Always enjoyable to chat with you guys. And thank you very much, everybody out there, for passing along your questions. It was great. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Dr. Katz. And Mike, thanks for mentioning there's only 2 minutes left. I was watching AMD and I was about to take a trade, and with less than 2 minutes, that would not have been a good idea. There's not enough time necessarily for it to play out. So, okay.
So we do have a couple sets of earnings today after the close. Pull them up real quick for everybody. We got Chewy, Play, and Peloton, which I think is going to be the big one that everybody's looking for. So,
Chewy.
405 for Play, which is Dave & Buster's, and then 410 for Chewy.
I thought there was one other. Oh, Oracle. Right,
Oracle.
Oracle's happening. It doesn't. Every once in a while, we'll have some interest in Oracle, but not often.
And then we'll do the time from the closing bell to the earnings. We'll do the trade of the day. So.
Excellent.
Uh-oh.
Apple? What is Apple?
Uh-oh.
Everything's just going so.
I got to do something. That's buy.
Oracle's moving down here in anticipation of earnings. That's interesting. There's the bell. We are closed. Markets are closed. Let's see what happens after hours now.
Yes, very interesting.
Oracle went from moving down into the close to immediately after the close. It leapt up by $2.
I think Microsoft got me. Oh no, I think okay. We're just doing some testing. That's all. I've been playing around. It is fun to play around in Sim though. When you know that there's no stakes at all involved, and you
it can be. It can be.
You're just like, oh, here we go. So.
Yeah. Let me take 1,000 shares of that. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
But let me. All right, let's do the closing bell before I answer this question. So the member trade of the day today goes to Matthew on his trade on Piton of all things. Which was nice. As you can see, he did a little bit of volume analysis along with price action analysis here. Saw that nice, huge buying wick. And I was actually watching this at this time because I was, this is the trade that I took. He got much better entry than I did. But the buying pressure right there at that pre-market high, which was also an all-time high, really, for Piton at that time. And the volume just started coming in and jumped right after that hammer candle. And then it pulled back, and you can see he got right there at where that pre-market high is, which is that dash, the horizontal line that he has on there. So he took a position right there as it rejected VWAP. He had increasing volume that was coming in. Broke the high of the day as well. Took a partial right there after the break because that was a very quick up, down, and back up. So good job taking the partial there. And then partialed on his way up. And I really like how he determined to get all out before his break even as well. Notice that the stock was rolling over and just said, it's losing the 9 EMA. I'm going to get out. And as you know, right after that, Piton went south pretty far for a while. So excellent trade by Matthew on that.
Well done. Nice trade, Matthew. I do like that trade.
So excellent trade. And then we'll get into announcements. Trade of the day. If you'd like to submit for member trade of the week, you have a chance to earn an iPhone if you're selected for the trade of the day, and you do that simply by marking up and posting your best trade on Twitter. It is important that the chart is readable, and just like Andrew showed in today's during the open, is if you have a good detailed plan, it definitely boosts your ability for us to choose it because we're able to understand what you did, and it's not just a picture there that we're interpreting. Tag at Bearable Traders, at MikeB_BBT, and at NormBBT. Use the hashtag BBT family, day trading, and stock market, and then we'll announce the winner on Monday for the closing bell show. If you are selected for the trade of the week, you will end up having to do a trade replay as well as a trade book and take a picture of your trading station. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be a laptop computer because that's really all that you need to trade. Psychology, this week we had Kreda, who went into identifying those unconscious habits that you have, as well as how you can be self-aware, how they're affecting your trading. Next week, we'll have Dr. Katz along with two of our members in the community. David from Connecticut and Megan will be joining us to share their worst and best trading moments with regards to psychology and get some feedback from Dr. Katz on how they can continue to improve and not regress back into some of the bad habits or experiences that they went through. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Peter.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about some success webinars because I am delivering some success webinars. Last night we had a great one. I appreciate everybody that joined with me to be able to talk about IPOs and how to trade IPOs. That was a good one, and I've sent the file in. I don't know if it's been loaded yet. Maybe that's what broke the website earlier today. Anyways, but that will be in our success webinars area for you to look at on how to trade IPOs. And then next week, we're going to do the Redux, the reboot version of the VWAP trading. This is the lightning bolt strategy. So we'll go over that. I'll bring in some new examples. We'll talk about how we trade that lightning bolt. And if you've attended it, it's always a good refresher. If you haven't, it's a good pattern because, Andrew is now using it, or at least referring to it at the open, as is Brian. And it's a good general pattern that you don't have to use it the way I present. It has lots of applicability. It's a common type pattern that you can use elsewhere, but I'll go through and I'll explain how it works, how to recognize it, and how to trade it. That'll be next week at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 16th. And then, because those webinars are so fantastic, you may decide to join us. And if you do, we have two options. For those on YouTube who want to take a look at BBT and see what it's like, you can join with that 1 week trial for $24. Use the code premarket24, and you can join us for a full week. See how the room works. See how the chat room will help drive your trading journey into profitability. I honestly believe it's a great place to help your journey, and a lot of support. As you just heard, we have not only regular trading activities, but psychology advice, as well as the support of a good team and community around you. So it's important. And hopefully it would be one that you would find of value. And when you do find that value, you can then join us for a lifetime membership. It gives you full access. Again, it is true lifetime. No other payments ever. You get access to all of our material, all of our training material or psychology material, as well as, of course, as the chat room and the forums for a one-time price. Use the code LABOR34 to get 35% off the one-time payment membership option for our lifetime members.
And we got Piton's earnings are out. They beat on earnings and revenue, so why not have it sell off back down to $80?
Okay. Now, Oracle also came out with their numbers right at 4. They also beat top and bottom line. I noticed Oracle jumped up and then held that. In fact, it's up a few more bucks from the close, so at least it's going the right way.
Yeah.
What is Piton up to? Yeah, Piton. Well, Piton's back up here to break even.
Back up. Somebody just needed those shares down at 80 to get a position.
Yeah, exactly. Someone wanted to accumulate, and they didn't want to pay 90. They were looking for a cheaper price. So. Look at it go now. Whoops. Just putting some space to get ready for tomorrow. We might as well. I'll put that. I've got Oracle I'm going to look at. I got Piton. Whoops. Peloton.
Piton's still heading up, which is. I thought I was on the same philosophy as Brian today. I thought Piton was gonna hit that $100 mark. Maybe maybe it just wanted to wait till after earnings to hit it. We'll see.
We got close. Well, 98.61, was the high. So
98.61.
that was right off the open, and then well, you know what? It looks like it probably would have if the market hadn't conspired against it, because the market obviously was, obviously heavily down, and that was just going to act as a drag on it. So,
yeah,
better market conditions, it probably would have been there. Oh, Eamon, what are you sending me here, buddy? Oh my goodness, what the? Eamon's busy trading. Eamon's going into like high risk categories now. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that first loss. So $2 loss, and he's what the heck? Let's try it again. This time got a $8 gain.
So Matt C, your DAS settings, when you transition to live, as long as you upload the same. Why can't I think of the name? Same file to load your screens, it'll load back up. The one thing that you will probably lose, because you're going to go from the DAS demo to whatever your broker offers, you're getting your horizontal lines and your markings on your chart. And there might be a couple other different configurations, but for the most part, you'll be able to save everything. Your hotkeys and all that remain the same.
So what? Chewy Q2 net loss. So is that good or bad for Chewy? I'm not sure what it's telling me.
According to their price action, it's not good.
I was going to say, yeah, it looks bad. I don't see what the street estimate was, other than revenue. So it barely beat on revenue, 1.7 billion versus 1.69 estimate. So I mean, that's flat, let's call it. But they lost a lot less than last quarter. Their earnings, their EBITDA, was up versus same quarter last year, I should say. But again, that doesn't mean that's what the street was expecting. So I don't know. Oh my goodness! Somehow I got into the machine code. Yeah. Well, we'll watch and see what the markets think for tomorrow. Exciting. All right, guys, I have a lot of work to do here tonight, so I better get going. In fact, we got a bunch of interviews to conduct, so I better get going to that.
All right,
thanks so much for being here. Thanks for helping me stay entertained during what was really just a choppy, sort of uncertain market this afternoon. Made it tough to find. I found good trading opportunities. With me, you took a couple of trades. I think what did we trade? We traded Workhorse, and before that, I took some trades on Apple. So those ended up okay, but yeah, I didn't get much else out of this afternoon. And for the first time in a long time, I did not trade either Microsoft or AMD into the close. So I guess, and I don't feel bad about it actually. So that's all right. So yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And
thank you, Peter.
See everybody in the morning. Later.
And I will be dropping off shortly as well. So thanks everybody. Looking forward to tomorrow. I will not be trading a live account tomorrow. I'm going to do some data gathering so that I can create some nice charts in ChartLog for some work. So I'm looking forward to having fun at the open, just taking all kinds of cool different trades. But it will be fun. So looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Amen. Have fun trading in the after hours. Make lots of money for us. Mr. T, have a great evening.